I want to impact as many people as I can through the work that I do. I really wanted to go into something that was creative. I was advised to do something that pays well. In dentistry, there was a huge gap. Dentistry was in the dark ages when it came to marketing. I was seeing websites and marketing and branding, and I thought dentists are getting ripped off, so I need to do something about it. You insulate yourself from feedback so it doesn't hurt. And that's, I think, when I was able to really scale, and I would implore all young dentists to look at the communication. The minute I thought we were solving a water problem, what actually ended up happening was we were solving an education problem. Success for me now is freedom and enriching people's lives.
Marketing expert, award-winning author, philanthropist, what hasn't he done? Today we've got Shaz Memon on the show, your go-to guy for everything branding related in dentistry. From starting Digimax Dental in his parents' garage to building it into the highest rated dental marketing agency worldwide, he's learned how to run a business in dentistry through failures. From selling almost 20,000 copies of his book Instagram for Dentists, getting featured in Forbes, and lastly starting the incredible Wells on Wheels charity, Shaz has received recognition from all around the world. We'll cover all of this and more in today's episode. Stay tuned for actionable tips and nuggets of gold from the branding expert himself. Let's get into it.
So Shaz, we always start with a question. What is your why?
Very good question. I want to impact as many people as I can through the work that I do. So whether that's professionally, through my work, ultimately, as a business owner, what are you doing? You're providing services that enrich people's lives, gives them more freedom. So I do that through my business, which is Digimax, and then Wells on Wheels, a charity I formed off the back of UK dentistry and the love that I received from UK dentists. So helping young girls attend school, that's my why. Building a legacy, teaching my daughter about giving back, and helping through, I guess, the status and the love that I've earned in UK dentistry. So my why is ultimately helping people, professionally or through charity.
You mentioned legacy. What does legacy mean to you, Shaz?
It's growing up, it was all about building myself up. What can I do for myself? How can I secure myself? As a young man, you feel like there's no one's coming to save you. You're building for yourself. Yeah? And if you don't, you're a failure. That's how I saw life. And as you get a bit older, you start to understand that the best things in life are not materialistic. You probably have to get to my age to really feel that and go through that cycle. So I'm a father, I've got a young daughter, she's 8 years old now. So I'm thinking on another level. For me, legacy is what's going to happen when I'm gone? What am I leaving behind? How am I going to be remembered? Most importantly, how's my daughter going to remember me? How's she going to speak about me? So for me, it's the good work continuing way after I'm gone.
I mean, when did that switch happen? Because I can't imagine that was the same for you from the start of your journey. Like, what was it like along the whole journey?
When my daughter came into this world, a switch just came on. So if there's any parents watching this podcast, I expect there's not that many. Something changes when you become a parent, for most of us, if you've got empathy. And it was at that point, I remember my wife going to Mums and Papas, and like, best car seat, best this, best that, safe this, safe that. And I just had this moment of, because I've traveled to India a lot in my young years, we do so much to wrap our children in cotton wool. Maybe your parents did the same with you. And there are so many children all around the world not having even the basic level of protection and care. So I just started to build a lot more empathy, and I started to see things that I didn't see before once I had my daughter.
Interesting. And I'm guessing, did that shift also lead you to Wells on Wheels, which we'll talk about afterwards, but how did that impact that?
Look, growing up, I've always seen my father give, right? He gets conned a lot. He's giving to people that don't even have legitimate charities, but we saw these people coming to our house, and I just saw my father always give. And I also wanted to give, okay? But I was paralyzed because these charitable organizations, there's so many costs involved. How much of the pound is actually reaching the final destination? So I don't know if either of you have ever helped a homeless person, bought them food, done something. Feels good, right? You give, you see the impact there and then, you walk off, there's a nice feeling. But I wasn't getting that with donating to charity. And then I was just not donating because I was paralyzed by that thought that it's not reaching. So on the back of my mind, there always was this thing that I really want to create a charity, but I wasn't finding that thing that I can connect with and make an impact until I did find that thing.
Awesome. So Shaz, of course, you're the founder of Digimax Dental. Talk us through what the vision there was to start and how it's evolved to what it is now.
Sure. Growing up, I've got two elder brothers, so I'm the youngest of the family. They're about 12 years older than me, and they're designers. So I was brought up in a design family, and back then, there really wasn't any software. So the way you design was you'd get letters on a transfer paper, and you'd transfer the letters. So if I wanted to write Fahim, I would get the F, the A, and the H, and you're transferring it, and you are creating a flyer. And then you go to you create a bromide, then you go to a reproduction facility. They almost like high-tech photocopy it. So I've seen design from an early age, and I would say watching my brothers do this kind of thing, when they would leave the home, I would go onto their computer, because by that time computers had come out, and I'd reproduce what they're doing until one day they saw what I was doing and they encouraged me. So by the time I was 15, I could do what they were doing. So I had a bit of a head start. So when I went to university, I did a degree in e-commerce. I was interested in internet business. It was a new degree. I really wanted to go into something that was creative, but something I was advised to do something that pays well. You know, what do our parents usually say? Become a doctor, a dentist, you know, that kind of thing. And I just was not interested in that. I wanted to create, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to impact, and I wanted to have control over the work that I do. So I converted with my student loan my parents' back garage garden. So really humble home, typical semi in West London, and I converted it and I put a computer in there and I started to design for people. So I started designing party flyers, packaging, anything that anyone was willing to give me. By the time I graduated, Digimax was a known sort of graphic design one-man band show, which was me. So I had lots of work coming in, and then I didn't really have any vision. There was no vision. There was no one really to properly guide me. There wasn't any YouTube. There was no Gary Vee or Alex Hormozy. There was no one guiding. You're guiding yourself. So for 10 years, I sat in this garage and I was designing for lots of people. And every year looked the same as the previous year. There was no growth. And what I loved doing, I eventually ended up hating. Yeah, I'd put on weight. I would say I'd become depressed because I was going into the same place alone, working and working and working. And now it wasn't a passion anymore because so much work is coming in. I don't know about delegating. I've told myself no one can design as good as me, so I can't hire. If I do hire, I'm going to afford their salary and charge what I didn't have. It's not like today where you can go to anyone, speak to anyone, go on LinkedIn. There wasn't even LinkedIn probably back then. So I was just in a rut, just creating, until my brother came in to my office in the garden and said, "What are you doing? Look at the state of you," right? I probably looked like 40 years old when I was 25. And I told him my issues, and he said, "Well, look, why don't you try hiring an extra person? What's the worst that's going to happen?" I said, "I don't know, I'll lose money." He was like, "Is that the worst? Is that a big deal? So how much are you going to lose?" Did the maths. I thought, okay, let's try it. So I hired my first team member, hired my second, right? And the other issue I had was no one really wants to work in a box at the end of a garden. So they were quite nice to me. To go to the washroom, they'd have to go through the kitchen. So they'd come back smelling like onions, right? So then I had to get an office. And then I started to understand that business is about scaling, systems, growth, with adding value. Until I got to a point where I got my first dental client. And that's when I realized that Digimax, the business that I developed that was designed for every kind of organization, had to evolve into something where I can niche. And I saw in dentistry there was a huge gap. Dentistry was in the dark ages when it came to marketing. I was seeing websites and marketing and branding, and I thought dentists are getting ripped off, so I need to do something about it. So the vision in 2017 was stop Digimax itself, where we do work for every industry, and just focus on Digimax Dental.
Yeah. So being that, graduate, going through, you've got a background in design, but now you're having to learn systems, you're having to learn, delegation, business. I mean, how was that change for you?
It was like, see, everyone tells you you're doing great, yeah? People were telling me, you're doing fantastic, you've got a business, we're still working. So you're being told constantly you're doing really well. And you're reflecting, thinking, I don't think I'm doing that well. So you have to get off your high horse, step down, and seek help and say, I don't know what I'm doing. So I started to look for help. I thought, I can't be the only business owner that's stuck in this rut, because I don't want to get a job. I'm earning the same amount every single year. If I don't work, I'm not going to make any money. So it was a huge challenge.
And then what was that feeling like when, as a designer, you are solely responsible for the outcome, right? You put a lot of pride and you put a lot of, attachment to the outcome. And then stepping back, being hands off and giving that responsibility to someone else. I mean, what was that like?
That's probably one of the hardest things I ever did. When you get feedback from clients and you're young, everything hurts. They say, I don't like it. You've been up all night. How can you not like it? What do you tell them? You should like it. Your feelings are being hurt. There's been times when I've cried. I remember it was Eid Day, received an email. It was from two sisters that are dentists, and they would put me on a pedestal when I would do something great. But the way they would knock me down, it would really hurt. But now, looking back now, the age I am now, if I go and read those same emails, there was nothing personal in them. So you learn to strengthen yourself and not take things personally as you're climbing up the ladder. Because I think a lot of young people make this mistake. You hear something and you're like, that is a personal attack. I don't like that. I don't like the feeling of that. And now it's like, well, these are just words. What does that person mean? Maybe they're having a bad day. You insulate yourself from feedback so it doesn't hurt. And that's, I think, when I was able to really scale, because I understood that actually we're just from different worlds. We've had different upbringings, different way of looking at things. I need to understand them. I shouldn't be getting upset. Things start to change. So I would say personal development is key to personal growth, to business growth.
Very interesting. So Shaz, there are lots of parallels between the design world and dentistry in the sense that it's very aesthetic focused. Would you say that you see similarities as well between design and dentistry?
Absolutely, because design is about symmetry, beauty, form, function, and dentistry is no different. So there are so many similarities. So that's why I feel I can speak the same language as a dentist, and dentists can relate to me because I know their world.
Very interesting. So young dentists oftentimes, Shaz, get lots of complaints, right? How would you advise a younger clinician, someone who just graduated, to handle that complaint then, based off what you said there?
Well, look, when clinical skills are involved and a complaint comes in, the thing is, a lot of complaints are communication. Yeah, there's an issue. So there's a hygienist I know that received a complaint, excellent hygienist, and I said, what was the complaint? She said, the patient said to me that they're very happy with the treatment, but when they left, they made a complaint that I only got 20 minutes of the hygiene clean when I should have had 30. She said to me, if I did 30 minutes, I'd probably blow her gums off. Okay, so the issue there was she didn't explain that I'm going to stop a little bit early because we're done here. Often complaints that I come across, that I see in Google reviews, all come down to communication. And then sometimes it's clinical skills. So I would say improve your communication, half of your complaints will go away.
What's the biggest lesson you learned about communication?
So look, I'm a behind the scenes person. I'm not front and center. And I don't like it until I had to become front and center. Even being invited here, I feel extremely honored. So this is not who I am as an individual, but I realized that I need to work on my communication skills to attract the opportunities that I want. So I would say learning to speak publicly, doing your best to break out that fear. Most of us have a fear of public speaking. Even now, I get nervous in speaking, and I never thought I'd get paid to speak now. Getting through that, if you can speak to lots of people eloquently, clearly, but in a way that you're educating them, so they leave remembering what you said, and they feel like they've gone through a transformation of some kind from the knowledge that you've shared, that for me has been a huge thing. And I would implore all young dentists to look at the communication, their spoken English, how they speak in group settings, and I would encourage them, maybe you guys should start a course on public speaking. Do that. In my daughter's school, they teach them to speak in front of a class at an early age. They've introduced this young. I think it's the best skill you can have.
Awesome. So Shaz, you've been in dentistry for over 20 years. What's kept you in the space for so long?
I really like it. UK dentistry is like a small family. Obviously, there's a lot of divide in the profession. I hear about it, I read about it, but I've just received immense love. There aren't many industries in the UK where you can feel like the way you do in UK dentistry. We're all connected. And If your reputation's good, you can fly. If your reputation's poor, you're finished in UK dentistry. So I just feel that I've invested so much time in UK dentistry, and I really care about the people that I work with, that there is no looking elsewhere.
Understood. You mentioned their reputation, Shaz, right? I understand that you believe massively in the power of reputation. What do you think PR can do for a young dentist, and how important can personal relationship building be in that personal brand?
Sure. So, look, PR without substance is just a vanity exercise. Yeah, it's attention seeking. PR is about bringing visibility to exceptional individuals that are doing some wonderful, great things. So to young dentists, I would say, you need to focus on visibility and putting who you are on a megaphone. So building a personal brand isn't about, taking pictures of yourself in a bikini, sipping a matcha latte, looking like a wet sausage on a beach. Okay, that's attention seeking, unless that's who you are. It's about presenting yourself to your patients in a likable manner. Now, most patients feel that dentists can all do the same thing, right? So I wrote a book, Instagram for Dentists, most sold clinical book in UK dentistry, over 18,000 copies sold. And in there I wrote, in the Power of 9 model that I created, that the first 9 squares on your Instagram, 7 out of 9 of them should be about you. You should be able to see the whites of your eyes, what you're into, your interaction with people, humanize it. Only 1 or 2 need to be teeth. So I would say take the pressure off sharing before and afters, because you're young, you're early in your career. Build your personality, just showcase it, and be yourself. You don't need to emulate anyone else. And the most seen, the most visible, attract the best opportunities. There's so many dentists out there. They're not Picassos of the dental world. They've just done a very good job of being visible.
Do you have any examples of that, maybe that our audience can have a look at as reference points?
By saying they're not Picasso,
No.
it could be an insult.
No, not that part. The second part. Someone who's built a personal brand very well around themselves rather than clinical work alone.
Look, there's lots of people in UK dentistry that have built an exceptional personal brand, and they're known for wonderful things. And many of them, they're not even extremely well known, but they're well known in their circles. I could go on and on and on. But if you just take me for an example, I didn't want to build a personal brand. It was pushed upon me to go out and speak. A show organizer told me, look, I'm going to give you a speaking slot. You need to do it. Turned up to this speaking slot, and I was shaking. I knew my stuff, but it's scary, all these people looking at you. Deliver the talk. Someone recorded it for me. It was abysmal. I want to delete that file, right? But straight after the talk, a man came up to me and said, I really want to work with you. I said, okay, great. And he signed up and he started work. I said, look, can I just ask you a question? You wanted to work with me after the talk. You know my public speaking was abysmal. Why did you choose to work with me? He said, look, I'm judging you based on what I think you know, and I feel you know your topic area. So just showing up, it doesn't have to be polished. Look at all the creators we look at on Instagram and TikTok. Are we judging them based on the lighting, the wall? We're judging them based on what value are they giving to me. So when we turn up on social media to build our personal brand, there's got to be substance. We've got to be thinking what's in it for them. It shouldn't be about you. It shouldn't be about your Nobu lunches or where you are or Pilates. And it's got to be about giving them something that they don't have.
Yeah. Well, what you mentioned there as well is very similar to a few of the other guests that we've had. Because they mentioned how, sometimes Instagram and branding can be a facade. But what you're saying is essentially you can engineer that to work in a positive way for you as well. I mean, if you put value out there, you portray yourself as someone who can provide value, then that can be beneficial for you as well.
Absolutely. We've got to keep it neutral. There's parts of our personality that we might not want to share. Religious views, political views, negative views towards other professionals that have said something that you didn't like. We've got to keep it neutral. So we're sharing the real but raw parts of your life. So the dentists that we work with at Digimax, many of them who've gone on to build their own personal brand themselves, just posting online, speaking a bit more, they're attracting patients that genuinely like them. So I say, go and look at 10 of the patients that you really like, and the ones you want to have more of in future life, right? Once you're qualified, etc. And ask them individually. I've made a worksheet on this. You can get it on my website. Ask them why they come to you, what they say about you in private circles. You'll find that all of these sheets, when you get these sheets back, because I've done this exercise, say things that you had no idea about, okay? And when you get that list, you can make every post pass through this filter. Does it tick this, 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 and this? For example, a business coach said to me, Shaz, why do people use you? I said, I answered instantly, I said, it's my amazing design. He said, I bet you it's not. And I said, well, it is that. Why else would they come to Digimax? Asked 10 clients. Only one of them said design. The others said, because you make time for me, you really understand me, you're likable, you're like this, you're like... I'm thinking, if I'm going to now go and just post about design, I'm disengaging them. I've got to post about what they've told me they like about me, so I can attract more people like them. Same for our patients.
So your brand extends to not only your online presence, but yourself as well.
It is yourself. So you both have a brand. For me, your brand, Fahim, is innovation, creation. You're an inventor, forward thinker. Afif, for me, you are serial networker. You are not here to be average. You want to grow. You're going to reach ultimate heights. This is your brand today in front of my eyes. So let's have an exercise here, right? I'm going to say to you, I'm going to give you a brand name. Tell me what you feel. Harrods.
Expensive luxury.
Expensive luxury.
Concierge.
Concierge, okay? I'm going to say Aldi.
Affordable.
Good value.
Okay. Donald Trump.
Controversial.
Polarizing, yeah.
Okay. Immediately when I mention a name, you feel something. Personal branding, branding of any kind, is the feeling that you get when a name is mentioned or a name is seen. So every single one of us has a brand, okay? It might be good, it might be bad. We might need to develop it. Develop it means tell people what that is. So what you stand for, how you see the world, what you care about. I attract lots of people because they like that I do charity work. I also disengage with people who don't like charity work. That's part and parcel of being a human.
This message has been brought to you by Colgate. Now, you already know Colgate for their toothpaste and oral care, but what you may not know them for is the massive amount of support that they provide dental professionals, helping educate and empower the next generation of dentists to boost their career. Now, as dentists, we all know the importance of CPD in developing clinically. The recently launched Professional Education Hub by Colgate is a centralized platform and one-stop shop for all things verifiable ECPD related, filled with bite-sized videos, webinars, articles, and more. From leading clinicians, you can develop your career and obtain verifiable ECPD from the comfort of your screen. The amount of value is insane. With an ever-expanding catalogue of content to choose from, there's something for everyone. Visit www.colgateprofessional.co.uk to sign up and register now. And now, back to the episode.
So what's the difference between branding and marketing then?
Look, marketing is the activity of getting people to transact with you. Okay? Branding is what you stand for. It's your promise, right? So Harrods is expensive, it's luxury. Marketing is the billboard telling you that Harrods exists, trying to get people into the store.
Yeah. So can you have one without the other?
Well, now look, we've got paid marketing and unpaid marketing. Yeah, unpaid marketing, I wrote a book on this called Experience Marketing, how to grow your practice without spending a penny more on marketing. So the practices that do really well in the UK, they don't need a marketing agency. They are thriving on patients going out their way to tell their family members and friends to use them. That's marketing, unpaid, because of the service that you provided, how you made them feel.
Very interesting. I've actually read that book, Shaz. I think I got it at a previous event called Startup.
Yeah.
Talk me through, to give our viewers some of the key points maybe that you mentioned in the book about how you can build a rapport and relationship with your patients without necessarily spending millions on ad spend.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So we've discovered at Digimax that no amount of money spent on marketing can grow a poor practice, where the relationships aren't strong, where you're not making people feel special. So I wrote this book thinking that if I can get practices to be doing that little bit more, they'll get spoken about, and it'll probably make our job in marketing easier, right? So how many practices have birthdays for their patients? All of them. Yeah, date of birth, it's in your system. How many of these practices are sending a physical birthday card? What does it cost? If you send a physical birthday card year on year to 2,000 patients, what's going to happen? It's going to arrive through the post. You're going to open it, you're going to look at it, you're going to put it on the mantelpiece. Family's going to see it. There's a constant reminder you're making people feel good. So this book is full of little things that you can do. Coming here today, right? Finding where you are. Where's the parking going to be? What's it going to look like? What's going to happen when I walk in? That's what people think when they arrive to a dental appointment. What if in the morning they receive a video as a text message, walking directions from Euston Station, this is what it's going to look like, fast forwarded, you turn left, you turn right. You're coming calm, okay? Coming calm, you're getting greeted with a smile. There's so many little things through the journey. If I gave you an Apple iPhone right now, okay, in a box, you're going to open it, you're going to like it, yeah? It makes a sound when you open the box. I'll give you that same phone in a carrier bag, same phone. Product's the same. It's how you've packaged it. Everyone can do dentistry. How you wrap it up with the little things that don't really cost that much is going to make the difference between whether they liked your treatment or they didn't like your treatment. And that's what this book is about.
So Shaz, I'm also aware that you partnered up with the person to deliver a course in your clinic's platform name. So talk me through some of the biggest lessons that the hotel and hospitality industry do very well, that maybe dentistry are missing out on perhaps.
Isn't it fascinating that 5-star hotels around the world, they can just open up and run, but dental practices really struggle to maintain that standard. There's always one key operator, someone who's been in the practice for 20 years, when they leave, everything falls apart. But hotels, on the other hand, they consistently deliver a certain level of service. So I was always fascinated about that. So I looked into who's training hotel staff, and I took my team to a concierge training company, and my team were like, why are you taking us to a hotel trainer? And the hotel traders were saying, what has web design got to do with hotels? So I had to convince both parties to attend this course, right? And at the end of it, the outcome was, what can we do to make people feel better? What can we do that no one else is doing? And how can you do this on repeat without relying on key individuals? So standard operating procedures. If you come to my office, I give you a glass of water. It's going to be a glass facing you with the D. The line of the water will be at the top of the D. Okay, I can replace my entire workforce. They will look at that SOP and give you the same water. It's like McDonald's. You build it, you create systems, people have to follow those systems. The ones that don't, you have a conversation with them, and it's just systems. You create a system for customer service, every single thing that happens in your practice.
And do you have any main systems that you think people are missing out on? Is there any one thing you could make as a change? For example, the way you greet the patient when you go out to see them in the waiting room?
Yeah. So the patient journey, when does it start?
Before they get to the practice.
Before they get into the practice, absolutely right. So from the moment they may inquire, okay, speed of response, that's number one. Enthusiasm of response, number two. You get blasé emails, you inquire with the company, it's just blah emails, right? In my book, we wrote, this is how you're responding now. This is how you should be responding. We are so grateful that you've reached out to us. Love to work with you. Can't wait to see you. Who's writing that stuff in the UK? That's why it's so easy to win in the UK. You just got to do a little bit more than anyone else. Just think about a restaurant. A waitress smiles at you and maybe even says, goes out of her way ever so slightly. You're like, oh, this is the best restaurant ever. We are so used to substandard service. We either get what we're expecting or below what we're expecting. Imagine you go to KFC, a lady comes around, gives you the food on a plate, and says, I hope you're okay. If you need anything, let me know. You'll be perplexed because someone's done something that you're not expecting. And I guess, the easy wins, they're right there. They are right there. And you don't need PPC or thousands of pounds of marketing spend to get patients speaking about you.
Interesting. And how do you think, now moving into more of an AI age, how do you think this whole AI thing fits into the patient experience? How do you think that might alter that in the future?
Like there's AI chatbots, there's AI diagnosis, there's AI videos, there's all kinds of things happening. If we use these as a tool, not to remove the human connection, to aid the human connection, then I think they're fantastic. If you feel AIs should replace the human touch, there's some tools out there where they're calling patients up for recalls, right? You know it's AI because it sounds like AI. It's not that developed yet. So some things are going to have the opposite effect. As cool as they sound, what's the opposite effect? I'm getting phone calls from an AI agent. I'm just going to move. I'm going to spend my £20,000 at a different practice. What are the cost of these? So we look in the short term that, wow, these many calls were done. That would have cost me a whole team member. What are you losing off the back of removing that connection, that personal connection? So I would say use it as a tool to aid the human touch, not to replace the human touch.
It's funny that you say that. I just want to mention this small analogy. I don't know if you've heard of the story of the hotel doorman and the consultants. So there was a hotel and they decided that they wanted to hire some business or management consultants to try and reduce their costs.
Yeah.
So what they did was the consultants came in and they said, let's remove the doormen. They serve no purpose. So they installed automatic doors. What ended up happening is within a few months, vagrants came in. They were, populating the lobby. The amount of people who would go to the hotel was also reduced because what they didn't realize was the doorman also greeted every single customer. They made sure that everything was running smoothly and no one was coming in who shouldn't be because they didn't consider the wider implications of the role. Would you say that's similar to that?
Beautiful example. The wider implication isn't being considered. We're being short-sighted here with some of these decisions. You've got to be really careful. You built up a brand. Some of these practices are 20, 30 years old. You're listening to a young group of people who are excited about AI, but they've got no idea the long-term impact. They've got no idea of how these people think. So you've got to be really careful. Even changing the practice name, you can lose 20, 30% of patients if you don't do it in the right way. There's so much to consider.
Awesome, some food for thought there for everyone.
Yeah.
So Shaz, let's talk about charity. You're founder of Wheels on Wheels. You mentioned that you deliver water, help people with water in India. Talk us through how Wheels on Wheels was formed and where you want to take it in the future.
Sure. So, like I said to you earlier, I always wanted to give back in some way. But I wanted to do it in a way where I can create a charity for people like myself. They want to see the impact. So every delivery that we do of Water Wheels, and I'll share what we do, is filmed so that if you've donated money, you can see the impact there and then. Now, this is, I would say, a godly moment. I was in the office alone, which is rare, and we got these water drum deliveries, that go on top of the cooler, and I was taking them downstairs. One fell out of my hand, and it was just rolling. And I've just been, I don't know if you watch Indian films, but growing up watching Indian films, you'd see ladies carrying pots on their heads. So I just thought, I have a cousin in India, and I would send him money to help people in villages for all sorts, daughters getting married. Some of these people go and get loans and then hang themselves because they can't pay £500 back. So I would ask him, look, just go there, FaceTime me if you can, or record the impact of the money that I'm giving you, because it makes me feel good. And you record it. So you do various things, but often I would see in the background a lot of water collection going on. I was like, is this still happening? I've been seeing this in films like 20, 30 years ago, pots on the head. So I've got a bit of a manufacturing background. When TVs first came out, the thin ones, I started designing TV wall brackets. I started selling that. So I thought, let me just go to a Chinese manufacturer and say to him, look, can you just put some handles on this and let's see if we can make it roll. Really basic thought at this point. I wasn't serious about it at all. And then I looked into it, and someone had come up with this idea 2 years before me, revised the design on all terrains, had the mold made in the factory. I contacted her, Cynthia. She said, this is the factory in India. So I placed a £10,000 order of my own money. I'm going to make the wheels. And they said, where do you want it delivered? I said, I don't know. Just make it. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So I had these wheels made, found some volunteers in India, and we just went to a village that had a school that was having no attendance because girls are carrying water back and forth from the wells all day, which means they're not attending school. Mum needs to take the girls with them because there's not enough water. So from morning, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. till evening, and some of these girls are 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, barefoot, dangerous, treacherous paths, heat. So this water wheel, what it does is it carries 5 times more water than a pail on the head, and you can roll it, so no musculoskeletal issues. So the minute I thought we were solving a water problem, okay, they can collect more water, great. What actually ended up happening was we were solving an education problem. So the water wheel, 7-year-old isn't going to push something so big. Mum's pushing the water now. Children are free. So the girls are now free to attend school. And the penny dropped when I got a phone call, well, my team got a phone call, then I got a phone call saying, we've received a complaint. I said, complaint about what? They said, we've received a complaint from a school that the school is full now for the first time in 20 years, and they can't take on more students, but more students want to join. What are you going to do about it? I started laughing. I thought he was pulling my leg. Genuine complaint. And then we kept hearing that these schools are getting oversubscribed. And I said, look, that could be someone else's problem. That's not, I can't solve everything.
Yeah.
And that's when we realized, actually, we're solving an education problem. So the documentary we filmed, No Waterland, which is on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, shares the journey of 2 young girls who have been collecting water. Water wheel arrives, and now they're studying to be, police officers, doctors. They're leaving the villages to go to the main city. I'd really encourage you to watch that.
So what kind of inspired that documentary in the first place, Shaz? Because of course you're doing this work already. Was it to showcase the impact you were having?
It was to immerse you in what's actually happening. I can tell you about it, but if you see it and feel it for yourself, it's going to have a different impact. The documentary aired, and UK dentists supporting it. I mean, two cinema screens were full on a Wednesday evening. People from all over the country came to watch this. And I felt it was a way of giving back to them to see, this is what I've been doing with your money, okay? But something more magical than that happened. People from all over the world who care about water scarcity, education, people of Indian descent, even Pakistani descent, started to engage with this documentary and the work that we're doing. I remember one morning waking up and we had a $20,000 donation, and I just from United States, New York, right? We are not a big charity, a small charity. We've got no staff. They're all volunteers. So I emailed them back saying, "Are you sure?" So when people tell me like, "Why are you emailing? You're the worst charity ever," I just had this bad feeling that this lady's added an extra 0. She's made a mistake. And she said, "Shaz, I watched that documentary, and if I could, I would give you every penny I've got. I'm a very ill lady, and the work that you're doing is so incredible. We need more people like you." And really, I've done nothing. All I've done is marketing. I'm not getting my hands dirty. I've marketed a wheel that volunteers are delivering and that UK dental practices and dentists are supporting. So, and I feel great about my business now because my business donates water wheels as well. So for every project that we do, we donate water wheels. And we've got practices donating water wheels for every Invisalign case, for example. So it's just worked.
So what was that like for you, seeing that whole thing spiral upwards and become what it is now? What did that do for you?
I've got lots of ideas, but I don't always have a lot of self-belief. So when I came up with that idea, I thought, who's going to support me? That's why I paid the money I did, and I continued to pay. Because I thought, well, I'm going to do this for myself. I only made a post and I said, if you want to support, you can, but I'm going to do this on my own. But when people started to support me, I thought, wow, the impact any of us can make by just going out there and asking for the impossible. Like, to think that I would be able to create a documentary that's going to be on major platforms, it gave me the self-confidence that really I can achieve anything I want. And I want this to be an example to all the young people out there. Even I tell my daughter that you dream it, you can achieve it. There really is no difference between you and any other successful person out there.
Love it, Shaz. I'm also aware, as you mentioned earlier on in the conversation, that you wrote Instagram for Dentists, 18,000 copies sold, right? How was that like, and what was the vision behind writing that book? And I understand that also went to charity, correct?
That's right. So when Instagram started to gain popularity and traction, I didn't really rate it much at all. I didn't respect it much. It wasn't a proven business tool. You open Instagram back then, it's just cars and all kinds of things, right? It was a fun platform. So our clients started to ask us about Instagram, ask me. And I would reply saying, look, I'm not taking it too seriously just yet. 6 months on, like, well, we want to do stuff on Instagram, send us our logos. I sent it. 6 months on from that, Shaz, we've lost a heap of money, it's not worked, can you do this, can you do that? So I'm writing all this advice to people, back and forth, sometimes going into the evening. And eventually I got so fed up, thinking, I need to understand what's going on here. So I looked at my sent items and I thought, I'm just going to compile all of this into a book, and I'm going to call it Instagram for Dentists. Now, I feel when you get an idea, a bit like your idea, right, of making this podcast, you get the idea, run with it straight away. Do not wait, you lose momentum. So within 10 minutes, I made a book cover, put it on Facebook saying, this is Instagram for Dentists. I thought, if someone else gets this idea before me, I'm screwed. So I put it out there, I said, register here. I had over 400 registrations in the first day, it was a Sunday, 1,800 registrations within 3 weeks saying, we want this book. And I got to the office on Monday really smug. I thought, I'm going to open up Microsoft Word, copy paste this in, just format it, get a copywriter. I had 4 pages of content because I realized that of the content that I've been sending, there's so many filler words and personal stuff in there that there wasn't a book to be created. So I had to take 9 months off to write a book. And then I put a lot of pressure on myself because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I wanted to write a book that I would read. I'm not a reader. I would read. There's a lot of pictures in my book. And I learned a lot about communication. Yeah, I wrote 3 pages for 3 pages of content. I had to shrink it into 1 page. So brevity is key. You learn a lot about that. And the response I got from that book, honestly, it was overwhelming. And like I said, I didn't think it would be that successful. So I announced very early on that all the proceeds from this is going to go to charity. Now, my life would look very different if I hadn't had said that. Let's just say that.
Really? But yeah, let me ask you this then, a bit of an interesting question. What's something that you see a lot on Instagram that dentists do that you just absolutely hate? Absolutely hate it.
There's nothing that I absolutely hate. Look, as humans, we've got a sixth sense, okay? And that sixth sense tells us when something's not genuine or someone's trying to impress an audience which isn't really getting impressed. We don't really actually get that impressed with people. We get inspired by people. So I feel when I see people trying to impress without substance, I find that personally quite embarrassing for them. Yeah. So I think it should be about giving value.
Yeah.
So then, Shaz, what do you think that the best dentists you work with, people who are the anomalies, the exceptional individuals, what do they do so well?
They've worked on their clinical skills. They've worked on their communication skills. They're humble, they're approachable, they're likable, they're accessible, and they are there to educate you. They are there not to rush you. They really care about the outcome. And they are also, some of them are exceptional business owners. They've got multiple practices, but they're doing all the right things. And it's not a me vanity exercise. It's about what can I do to really help this patient. And they're very good at doing that. And the practices that aren't doing that so well, so some exceptional clinicians that do not like self-promotion. And it's difficult, right? Because I don't like self-promotion. So I would say rewire your mind to think that it's not self-promotion, call it reporting. Report what you're doing in your day. Educate people, share your views. If you just do that a few times a day, a few times a week, even a few times a month, that's enough to start building your brand in the right way.
Awesome, love it. So how can then one individual convert that brand into, let's say, tangible results? When it comes to networking, many people just go to conferences for the sake of going to them. How can one actually maximize and get utility out of these conversations?
Brilliant question. So turn up. Number one thing, turn up. Have the conversations. Start the conversations. Speak at events. Write for magazines. Write your own articles. Create a blog. Come on a podcast. Start a podcast. Be visible. All of these things link to visibility. It's just conversations. And think about why you're doing it. And that why should usually be, I want to give something to someone that's going to enrich their experience of the topic I'm going to talk about.
Being in design for so long, and then shifting, when websites came out, when social media, as you said, Instagram, initially you didn't think that there was anything in it, and then it shifted. I mean, there's a lot of, dynamic change involved. How do you rewire your mind to be open to change and to actually embrace it?
You've got to have the attitude that I'm always learning. The minute you think that you know it all, even today I'm learning. I'm learning from you how impressive this setup is. You've got to be open to learning and understand that things are always going to change. I'll tell you, some things aren't going to change. The way humans communicate, the way we feel things. All of these tools, platforms will come, go, stay, whatever's going to happen. At the end of the day, we are talking to humans. These are just different mediums. So we've got to speak in the way they listen. The only thing that's really changed is our attention span has dropped. So we're making websites, creating social media posts, even having conversations. We've got to deliver that information with minimal extra wording or thought or thinking required, because success is brevity. If we can get a point across quickly, you are going to succeed. Apple's done that very well. The most advanced fitness wearable on the market, Apple Watch, starts with that tagline. It's got about 300 features. It's not telling you all about that until you're hooked with that first line.
So Shaz, you always end our conversation with one question. What does success look like to you?
Success for me now is freedom and enriching people's lives. So if I'm healthy, my family's healthy, and I am leaving the world in a better place, to me that's success, and having the freedom to be able to do that. That is success for me.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you very much. I've been Afif.
I've been Fahim.
We had Shaz today. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, guys.